Hi, guys. This is Doug Jessup, and you're watching Family Heritage Stories. With me, I've got a pair of Midwestern girls. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. We got Mary Crafts and Tanya Toole. Now, Mary Crafts is one of the members of the board of the Fedora Foundation. Okay. And so we're going to get back to her in a second. But we've got the other gal right here. Okay. Tanya Toole. She's from Nebraska. Okay. And she is with a group called
Holding Out Help.
Okay. What's HELP stand for?
Good question. It stands for Helping, Encouraging, and Loving Polygamists. It's all these buzzwords that if somebody needs help, they can type them in and find our agency.
Okay. Very cool. Okay. So the girl next to you is from Iowa. Okay.
This Midwestern.
Okay,
Yes.
there you go. Okay. So my Iowa girl,
Yes.
what do you care about?
I really feel like the biggest thing in my heart is to take care of myself and others.
Okay.
And in the process of doing that, I find that my work in nonprofits is the most meaningful to me. I get to serve and I get to help. It's all rolled into one.
And we got HELP. Okay. And she's got the name HELP in her,
Right.
in her name. So, hey.
I was immediately drawn to that.
Okay. So why did you pick this organization for us to highlight today?
I haven't always lived in Utah. I was originally from Iowa.
Right.
And when I moved out here and I really learned more about polygamy, but not a lot about polygamy. I thought, well, that's okay. That's why they don't bother the polygamists, because everyone's just living, their own light, whatever works for them. And don't bother them. They just want more than one wife. They believe it's the right way. Until I began to learn about the dark side of polygamy and the part that has continued on. And Tanya really helped me see that. And I thought, I work in so many organizations, Doug, you know this, from domestic abuse to childhood sexual abuse, and helping children and women out of holes that they find themselves in. And I was dumbfounded that this was happening under our noses and no one's doing anything. Yeah. What's that about?
Right.
And so now this has my heart. I just want to be involved and be part of it and part of the solution.
Let's get into this. Okay. You're from Nebraska. There's not a lot of polygamists in Nebraska. Maybe there is, but I haven't heard of it. But why'd you get into this? How'd you do?
Yeah, Nebraska does have some. I didn't know it at the time.
Really?
You didn't know that. You probably have them in Iowa, as far as we know. But I ended up getting into this kind of by fluke. I'm just like her, let consenting adults do what they're doing.
Sure.
I really didn't have any problem with it. And suddenly I got this email, and they knew we had a mother-in-law space in our basement. And they said, would you be willing to be a safe house for people leaving polygamy?
Oh.
And we ended up getting a family of 6, 2 adult women and 4 children that landed in our home. And we were shocked at what they were sharing with us, but we kept again saying, it's just this family that had a bad experience. Well, the word got on the street very quickly. And for 3 years straight, people knew that there was a safe place for them to go when they left, in Draper, Utah, of all places. And so we just had family after family in our home. By the end of that 3 years, that first family came back and said, would you be willing to start a nonprofit to help others? And I remember asking them the question, why us? And it wasn't us. It was all the people that came to serve and didn't have any expectations of them, something that's foreign to them. And so we started it really small out of our home, and we had so many people in need. We realized it needed to grow. And so we reached out to neighbors and friends and businesses and churches and anybody that would listen to this plight. And it kind of just organically grew to where it is today.
I'm kind of in the same thing about the consenting adult thing, but I guess we need to go down there. What's the dark side? What do people don't they know?
And I always want to start off by saying that there's thousands of wonderful people.
Yes, very much
this
so.
Way.
Very much so.
I think the problem comes in at the top. When you have corrupt leaders that take advantage of the vulnerable, you have people that don't own assets, you have people that are physically, mentally, potentially sexually abused, undereducated, and don't know which way is up. The leaders tell their followers that they are hearing directly from God. So if they say to you, hey, Doug, we're going to ask you to give your 14-year-old daughter up to this 50-year-old man, and by the way, God commanded them to do that, you're going to do what you're told because your whole goal is to get to heaven, get to the other side, right? The alternative is hell. And so you really don't have a choice in the matter. So that's kind of the dark side. I would say there's a large portion of them that we could probably fall into the realm of human trafficking, which is a buzzword that nobody likes to talk about today, but it's happening. It's very prevalent under the guise of religion. So.
Yeah.
Right. And so, again, the thing that I like to ask people is, what do you care about? But what gives you hope? With what you're doing, what gives you hope? What can people do to help you be able to help more people?
Well, the first question of what gives me hope, it's letting others know that they have value and they have worth and that they are loved and they are known, right? And they have free agency, free choice. What others can do, I think if they're in a grocery store and they see somebody that is from the FLDS, they'll always know with the braids and the long prairie dresses, be kind. If you see a mother with a gazillion kids and trying to load groceries, be a gentleman or a friend and go help them get their groceries in. Help them with a child in the meantime, or help them get them in the car. Just be nice. A lot of people come to our agency simply because they set foot in a business where someone was kind, and they are always taught that outsiders are evil. And they see this and they're like, that's not true. These people are kind. So when they are in need, they reach out to whoever was kind to them.
I think those brainwashing techniques have become so evident to me. And that they are told over and over again that the outside world, the world is evil. And that these people that you would meet, they look like they might be, friendly, whatever, but they're not. They're evil. They're wanting to trick you, deceive you from ever getting to heaven. And what better antidote to that than kindness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. Well, the thing that I also look at is that, granted, I have a soft spot for my mom. I think we all have a soft spot for our moms. And those women are just doing the best they can.
Yeah.
And they are there. And if they're like any other mother that I know, the thing that they care the most about is their children. And they want them to be safe. They want them to be happy. But again, you don't know what you don't know.
Well, and we also have to remember in a lot of these communities, not all communities, but in a lot of them, that when the children are born, they are taught that those children are property of the church, of the leaders of God. And so a lot of these mothers don't have normal connections with their children.
Really?
And so if they prepare themselves, if your son needs to go off and work on these work crews all over the country, you are definitely going to let them go. And it's not going to be as hard as it might be for you and I,
Right.
with that attachment that we have with our children.
It really is different.
It's different.
Wow.
And then
I didn't know
most of our clients that come out have attachment disorders. So it's a bigger issue than I think we all realize.
Wow. Obviously, you've got Hilldale and Colorado City, the Twin Cities on the border of Utah and Idaho. But you also mentioned that there are polygamists in other areas, which I hadn't really thought about. Is there other organizations like yours that can help polygamists in other areas? Because the reality is this interview is going to be seen nationwide.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that people, wherever they are, can get help.
And we serve anybody. We've gotten people from Mexico and Canada, from all over the country and beyond. We partner with Hope After Polygamy, which is another agency that does educational scholarships for a lot of our clients. The lady who runs it came from the Kingston Polygamist Group, which is local. We also partner with a place called the Dream Center that is actually down in Colorado City. They're actually the #1 human trafficking agency, I believe, throughout the country. And they work very closely with us. So if we don't have housing, we have another place that we can potentially go to. But here in our valley, we have the Kingston Polygamist Group, also known as the Order of the Kingston Clan, Davis County Cooperative Society also. They're in probably Farmington up through Draper, and they're also in Idaho, but they dress like you and I dress.
Yeah.
And nobody would have any clue that they're from this culture. And then you have the All Red group, also known as the Apostolic United Brethren. They're in Santaquin, and their meeting houses up through Bluffdale, and they're kind of spread out. They probably look more like the mainstream LDS church is how they dress. You wouldn't know they're from polygamy. And there's a ton of them all over. And it's funny you mentioned Colorado City and Haledale, because they believe that that town has become contaminated now because so many outsiders have moved in, that their main hub is in Cedar City, Utah.
Really?
And they're taking that place over. It's insane.
One of the things that was most interesting to me at your recent gala we attended, they had a woman there who had been part of a polygamy group and had left. And her group was here in Salt Lake City. And the number of people involved were just astronomical. And she said the number one question that she gets is, well, how come we don't see you all the time? And she said, we're instructed by our leaders to blend in, to get jobs, to work, to be right among the community so that we're not singled out and persecuted. And that's how they live among us here. But the same things are happening under our noses here.
Yeah, and that was Lou Ann Cooper, who runs Hope After Polygamy.
Yeah.
And then the little niece that she ended up adopting later on, who had fled at the age of 14.
Right.
And I think they were trying to marry her off or whatever, and she said enough is enough and ended up in the state. But she's absolutely right. Like, it is a much more prevalent issue than any of us have any idea. And I had 2 people from that group said since 2020, their group has doubled.
Doubled. You have, obviously the girls that are being trafficked are being married underage to much older men. But then the other thing is what a group that I call the Lost Boys. Okay, now, and I think you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Have you had experiences in helping those young men?
Absolutely. So
Help explain what those are first.
So Lost Boys are technically from the FLDS polygamous community and were looked at as competition for the women. And so they took a group of these young men, and probably multiple groups over time, and they dumped them out in the middle of nowhere without ID, without money, without any belongings but the clothes on their backs. And so we have a Southern Division down in Cedar City and St. George area, and they are currently helping a lost boy, but we've had lots of lost boys over the years. I would say that they don't necessarily call them that anymore, in the sense of they now, instead of kicking them out, they put them in what's called repentance homes. And they're all over our country, out in the middle of nowhere. And that's one of the stories that I'll share with you today, of young men that are being forced to work, abused, withheld food, and sadly, we just hope at some point that they choose to, walk away or can get away, but they're out in the middle of nowhere. So where are they going to go?
Well, they're not also, from what I understand, they're not being educated. And so it's very hard to get job skills if you aren't being educated.
Yeah. Well, and what's so interesting is they all are so capable of so much. I mean, you have bakers, you have construction workers, but their formal education might be 6th grade, might be 8th grade. It just depends on the group that they come from. Some of them we've had 2nd grade. One lady that came with 6 kids, 0 education. And she's trying to now homeschool her children.
It's not like you guys are bashing polygamy. That's what we're talking about, is those behaviors that are very much unacceptable.
Yeah.
And so how do you walk that tightrope? How do you differentiate that?
No, and that's such a good question, Doug. Our agency really prides itself on being neutral on that topic. So anybody that needs help, whether they're in or out, feels like we are a safe space to come and be. I will say 98%, depending on the time, maybe 95% are people that are either fleeing or are being kicked out and choose to land on our doorsteps. But we try to stay to the topic of what these abuses are, right? And there's lots of them. And they're in most every group out there. Maybe not as much in the independents, but there's only a small fraction that would consider themselves independents, not under a specific group, if you understand what I'm saying. But most are in these closed, isolated communities.
So, Tanya, I know we need to be sensitive about, the politics of things, and religion and things, but there's all kinds of things that have been done in the name of religion over the years. But the thing that I guess I'm wondering is, what do people not know? I mean, because when you look at these organizations, you told me off camera that there was this revelation, I guess is what they called it. You want to help fill that in for me?
Yeah, so obviously, regardless of what people believe as far as politics and religion, there is a bigger issue here at stake. And the revelation that you're speaking about came out about 3 years ago, where Warren Jeffs from prison sent out a revelation stating that you can become a translated being if you're a devout follower. But you must die first, and then you'll be risen like Jesus Christ in 2.5, 3 days. And that's a revelation that's supposed to happen within 5.5 years.
To me,
did you just hear what she said?
Yeah, to me, that sounds like a suicide pact.
Yeah.
Which is kind of reminiscent. And, obviously you're not saying it, but from my standpoint, that kind of reminds me of the Jim Jones, when the literal drinking of the Kool-Aid that killed so many people. The thing that I guess, I'm not here to tell anybody how to run their religion and everything, but the reality is that there are certain things that wrong is wrong.
Yeah, as a community, we should say enough is enough when it comes to things like that. I mean, these are innocent bystanders. These are innocent children, innocent women, and frankly, innocent men who will follow their leaders to death. And that's what breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And I think you said something really wise when we were off camera about talking to our legislators, right? Talking to our senators, talking to our state representatives, to our mayors, and really getting the word out on what is happening here in our backyard. And I encourage everybody out there to do that.
So, Mary, we started this interview with the question, what do you care about? Okay. The follow-up question to that is, what gives you hope?
Well, this organization, Tanya and everyone that works there, of holding out help for these people who so desperately want to come out and want support. We need help for them. We're not going in there and dragging them out. There are people who are walking out but now have no resources, because even though they've been told they're going to earn a wage, it goes into God's vault and they never have it. And so they're walking out with nothing. We need to provide financial help for them, emotional help for them, healing help for them, a safe place to live. We need to be educating people in our community of what to look for, contacting your legislatures, contacting your local police department, contacting your councilman. Trust me, they're in your community. We cannot look away anymore.
Yeah, and I think something that's really important is, in 2020, I think Utah, we thought we did the right thing by taking it from a felony down to a misdemeanor, so they would feel safe to come out of the shadows, so to speak, right, and receive help. And sadly, I know in a lot of these closed communities, keeping them isolated under control is part of their ammo. And sadly, it didn't work. So now what is next?
Yeah.
And I love that you say we don't go after people. We don't go after people. We are literally just to catch them when they come out of these hard situations and say, you're not alone. We are here with you. We are going to encourage you. We are going to fight for you. We're going to get you the resources you need so you can stand on your own 2 feet. And then the only thing we ask is that they turn around someday and they give back to their community or back to an individual.
Well, and you and I've talked about this, Mary. I mean, there are wonderful organizations that help with domestic violence and sexual abuse and everything like that. But this takes it one step further, because, if you're looking at, and you're in a domestic violence situation, okay, that's one thing. But if you're in a domestic violence situation that also has this layering of the polygamy culture, oh boy, where the heck do you go?
Yeah.
And
you don't go anywhere
Yeah.
until you have surrendered that your only option is to give up your salvation and walk away. It has to be that bad for you to finally get up and leave. And that's when we're like, we're here, we've got you. Everything's going to be okay.
Okay, now I want to reiterate what you just said. I want to make sure I heard it right. Okay, so when you're in a domestic violence situation, I mean, there's got to be some kind of trigger that says, okay, enough. Okay. But this one, not only do you have to get to that point, but you have to basically say, okay, everything that I've been taught, everything that is every fiber of my being a belief, I'm going to need to set aside to be able to help me and my children.
And walk away from. It is so hard. The brainwashing is so deep. It's hard to walk away from that. I know people, and I know that you do, who did walk away, and the guilt and the shame overcomes them, and they go back because they believe that they have damned themselves to hell.
But to any person out there right now looking and watching this, thank you for your bravery. I mean, the things that you are going to do, you need, and the reality is to be able to step away. That's huge. And there is help. There is hope.
Right.
Get in touch with these folks. What's the best website for people to reach?
Holdingouthelp.org.
Holdingouthelp.org. And best phone number?
801-548-3492.
Anywhere in the country, you can call her. Anywhere in the country, you can go to the website. Anywhere in the country, they can get you help. They can get you hope. Take the opportunity. With another entry into Family Heritage Stories, I'm Doug Jessup.